Just tell me when
we're live.
Okay. Hi everyone. Sorry for the delay, but we're here. We made it. And a poetry reading is about to happen. So my name is Catherine Esposito Prescott. I'm one of the co-founders and the editor-in-chief of Swim Every Day. I'm here with my fellow editors, Caridad Moragonier and Jen Karetnik, and together we welcome you to our third mid-pandemic post-vax live reading. So everyone's like, yes, that's pretty much it. But we're grateful to be here at the Betsy Hotel, and we're grateful to be among poets and fans of poetry and fans of poets. So tonight we have reading for you our local writer, Celia Lisset Alvarez. Yay. And our visiting writer-in-residence, Juliana Gray. So how it works always is I will introduce the poets in the order in which they'll read. In fact, tonight I think I'll introduce you both since we're so delayed, and then you can follow each other up here, and they'll read for about 15 to 100 hours. 15 minutes to 100 hours, and we'll see how it goes. Oh, there's a podium coming. Would we like the podium? Yeah. I think we would like the podium. Thank you very much. As much as we love to see each other in our full regalia, this feels like an SNL skit. And next someone's going to come in with a wig. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you, appreciate you. Oh, this is so much easier.
Now you're trapped.
Yeah, now I'm trapped. It's all good. Okay, so the poets, let's get to know them a little bit before we get to know their work. So our local writer, who I'm so happy to meet tonight, is Celia Lisset Alvarez. She's a graduate of the University of Miami's Creative Writing Program. She has 3 collections of poetry: Shape Shifting, winner of the 2005 Spire Press Poetry Award, The Stones and Multiverses, a speculative memoir in verse about the death of her son. A 4th collection, Words, is forthcoming from Essor Press. Her poetry, short stories, essays, and reviews have appeared in numerous journals and anthologies, most recently in Fresh Words, Catamaran Pensive, a global journal of spirituality and the arts, and in the anthologies How to Write a Form Poem, Moving Images, Poetry Inspired by Cinema, and How to Live on Other Planets, a Handbook for Aspiring Aliens. Her poem, 1969, was nominated for a Pushcart Prize and About That Gold Bikini for a Best of the Net Award. She is currently the editor of the journal Prospectus, a literary offering, and lives and writes in Miami, Florida, with her husband, fellow poet Rafael Miguel Montes, daughters Lucy and Sarah, her recently widowed mother Sonia, and their dog Maggie, and 2 kittens, Elsa and Aladdin. I love that. And a few plants. And next to me, Juliana Gray. Juliana's most recent poetry collection is Honeymoon Palsy. She is also the author of Role Play, winner of the Orphic Prize and the Eugene Paul Nasser Prize, and The Man Under My Skin, as well as the chapbook Anne Boleyn's Sleeve. Her poems have appeared in Best American Poetry, The Hopkins Review, 32 Poems, and other journals. And her humor writing has been featured in McSweeney's Internet Tendency. An Alabama native, she lives in Western New York and is professor of English at Alfred University. So grateful for your sense of humor. Please welcome them both. Celia. Ready?
Good night, everyone. Thank you for having me. Thank you to Swim. Thank you to the Betsy Hotel. Thank you to Juliana for being my reading partner. Before I read from my book Multiverses, it requires a little bit of background. I'm calling it a speculative memoir in verse. It's based on the concept of the multiverse theory, which I'm sure that many of you are familiar with. You know, this idea that we live in parallel universes where, you know, we're sort of the same but slightly off. That's my Star Trek explanation, anyway. But the memoir part begins in 2015. I had 2 miscarriages. a beautiful baby girl called Lucy. And then I had micro preemies called Arturo and Sarah. We named Arturo after my grand uncle, Arturo, who was more like a grandfather figure to me. I didn't get to meet either of my grandfathers. They died in Cuba. But more than that, he was my best friend. He was amazing. We intended to name both miscarriages Arturo. So baby Arturito was our third try. He died at 26 days old. My granduncle died in 2017 before he got a chance to meet uh, my daughters or to know about our attempt at his namesakes. And then my father died in 2019. So those 4 years, 2015 to 2019, are the memoir part of this book. It's a memoir in four parts. Sequence one is the actual memoir, the events that really happened. There's a zero sequence, which is events that happened in the past before my son died. And then sequence two is an alternate universe where my son lives. Sequence three is a parallel universe in which I never conceived twins to begin with. And there's only one poem in sequence four where my uncle gets to meet his namesake. So what I'm going to try to do is to give you like a little bit of a glimpse at each of the sequences and a sense of the book as a whole. So I'll start with the very first poem, which is also the beginning of the one sequence, the true sequence, the memoir sequence. It's called version 1.0. In the NICU, they try to reassure me with stories of babies born at 23 weeks who have survived, just like you and I, no mark of this struggle of wires and buttons, dials and digital heartbeats. Born at 27 weeks, Arturo is more fetus than baby. I gasp the first time I see them, my twins, Arturo and Sarah. In the violet light of the incubator, I struggle to make out the color of their hair or their eyes. The only way I can tell them apart is that Sarah's hat has a jaunty bow. Try to remain positive, they say. They let me change their diapers. Arturo's eyes sit slightly open, flash of black, amphibious. I give him the tip of my finger and his hand curls around it like a kitten's paw. He is intubated, the tape covering his lower face like a mask. His chest is covered by sensors. Even the preemie diaper reaches to his armpits. All that I can see, because they cannot cover it in order to have a place from which to draw blood, is his left foot, a bulbous big toe standing straight up in the air, just like mine, just like mine. This is my son. Even when the crash car comes in, even when I can no longer tell which doctor can save him, I believe that things will turn around. When the beep of his heartbeat goes silent, I clutch my husband and watch my son turn purple, beginning with his toe. This is my son, I say to myself, when I can finally hold him, free from tubes and tape. I think of the multiverse theory, wondering what version of me can hold him alive and breathing? What version of me can take him home, can watch him grow? Sarah's hair is golden, her eyes a streaming blue river. She squeals with laughter as my mother makes her airplane sounds with her spoon. I think of that version of me where there are two toddlers, skin so white you can see their map of veins. I trace Sarah's blue highways to her big toe, bulbous, alert, ready to spring into action. Okay, now I'm going to read you version 2.0, which is the first of the parallel universes, and you'll see the difference right away. Version 2.0. The nurses clap and cheer as I exit the NICU. A baby in each arm and one behind. Now big sister Lucy, still just one. We've gone into debt to buy a Honda Odyssey, the only minivan to fit comfortably 3 car seats. I wait by the curb on the street, pink and blue balloons bouncing from my wheelchair, and Raphael pulls up, the proud papa, takes a picture of us before we struggle to get each baby in a car seat. The Montes Mobile, we will call it, as well as a 3-seat stroller I spent months researching, finally settling on a train, figuring that a side-by-side would not maneuver well down the aisles at Publix, where little hands would reach to grab a bright box of cereal. As we exit the hospital, I look in the rearview mirror, see the lunch lady that was so nice, and I turn towards the road home, only to find in the whispering air of the new van, and wonder what version of me will be capable of such work. How we will eat, how we will sleep, how we will bathe, how will I coordinate such need? Too many questions. I settle into the bucket seat of the van, try to stockpile the comfort I know I will lack in the coming years. A mixture of fear and joy propels us into our cramped home, where every corner will soon be covered with toys, diaper boxes, teething rings, and pacifiers. All right, so I'll read to you now the first poem in sequence 3, version 3.0. The jelly is warm on my skin as the tech moves the handle of the ultrasound machine from side to side. It's a girl, she says, with great enthusiasm. I see a brief wave of disappointment appear and then get hidden quickly behind my husband's smile. We already have a girl, and I am old. This is our last baby, and there will be no son to carry on his name, to toss a football with, to share a beer. We think this is disappointment. Another version of me wonders what the point is of coming into this world only to be throttled by tubes and pinched by needles for 26 days, only to die gasping for air. But this other version quickly adjusts. We toss girl names at each other on the way home. Lucy is so small, we still have leftover names. Will it be Laura? Sarah? It is a seamless pregnancy. There are no twins struggling for room in my cramped uterus. Sarah does not kick her way out of her amniotic sac 13 weeks ahead of time. We take good care of Lucy's clothes, paint the new nursery's walls pink. All right, now I'm going to go into the past a little bit and read to you about my uncle for whom I intended to name my son. This is version, let's see, give me a minute. .60. I'm in the middle of feeding Lucy when I find out. Raphael says, your cousin Kathy called. Arturito fell, and he's been in the hospital for 2 weeks. They think this is it. I need to see him, I say, even though it's the beginning of the semester and I have no idea how to handle it at work. Raphael makes it happen, and $5,000 later, I'm in a rental driving to the hospital. When I get there, he is yellow. He looks already dead. A trail of liver spots down his neck is the only thing I can recognize as him. My cousin Randy is the optimist. He's being moved to a less critical room, and the neurologist is hopeful. What they cannot understand is why he seems to have lost his mind, unconscious most of the time and incoherent the rest. There is no way to get him to eat. I see Lois in the hallway, and for the first time, she really looks 90. The next day, Arturito recognizes me. How is Panchito, he asks, as if this were a perfectly social visit. He's well, I lie. and show him pictures of Lucy. I remember that day, he says, looking at a picture of her on the beach. He is confusing her with me. We bring him more photo albums from home and play him songs from Cuba. Sometimes he recognizes people and even remembers lyrics to the tangos he so loved. At night, he takes to ripping off his clothes and trying to set himself free of the tubes around his body, the most dangerous of which is the Foley catheter that he already pulled off once a long time ago, the first time he fell, and they had to drill holes in his head to drain out the blood. Since then, his favorite activity was forcing you to touch them. See, I have holes in my head, he'd say, as if they were new. There's no such cure this time. 4 days passed and I must go back to work. I'm hopeful because he sat up and shaved his beard, the familiar buzz of the electric razor taking me back to those summer mornings he would stay with us in Miami. I'd know he was up because of that buzz, and every day with him was fun. The beach, dominoes, movies, push rummy, later drinking martinis and listening to Carlos Gardel and Edie Gourmet. When I tell him I'm leaving, he gestures, "Come on, let's go," as if I could take him with me. It's an early Sunday morning when I get the call. He passed away around 3 a.m., my cousin Donald says. No family at all. Que se quede el infinito sin estrellas, o que pierda el ancho mar su inmensidad, pero el negro de tus ojos que no muera, y el canela de tu piel se quede igual. That was one of his favorite tangos. All right, so I'll read to you the one poem in version 4, where he gets to meet his namesake. This is version 4.47. At 96, Arturito arrives in a wheelchair pushed by a flight attendant. I usually rush to meet him, but it is after 9/11, and we must wait patiently by the gate until he fully crosses. I have his namesake in my arms, a 7-month-old dressed in camel pants and an AC/DC t-shirt. We thank the flight attendant and he leaves, and I kneel and bend forward, putting the baby in my uncle's lap. He laughs his bright white smile, a dentist to the end, and I can see small tears gathered in the corners of his eyes. Can he walk yet? He asks, looking at the stroller behind us. And I say no, but he can crawl, a strange marine belly crawl, fists under his chin and elbows out. You'll be wheeling buddies, Raphael says, and Arturito acquiesces to be rolled to baggage claim. Once we grab that old blue suitcase, my uncle stands and uses the spinning cart to make it to the curb to get picked up. I stroke the back of his head and kiss him on his speckled cheek and ask him, "What do you think?" pointing my chin at the baby. Arturito doesn't hear me, the loud whirring of cars and taxis blurring the sound of his hearing aid. Instead, he guides my fingers to the top of his head and says, "Here, touch here and here. You feel the holes?" All right, so this is version 1.21, where we start to have some trouble with my father, who gets diagnosed with Alzheimer's. I catch my father giving Lucy a bite of his ham sandwich. "Papi," I scream, "how many times must I tell you we're vegan and plan to raise the girls to be as well?" "It's just a little piece," he says. And I go on a rant. "It's a matter of respect. You don't respect our choices, just like you don't respect our privacy." He's been peeking through the curtain on the French door that separates our side of the house from theirs, trying to get a glimpse of the girls when they are with us. Meanwhile, Lucy chews and smiles at her pop-pop as I whisk her away, furious, too furious really, this one piece of ham carrying the weight of my whole upbringing, of an entire lifetime of peeking through my curtains and questioning my choices. Just before I get to the door, I put Lucy down and easily rip off the curtain, a flimsy, dirty thing I had once helped my mom put up myself with 2 simple rods and 4 small screws. There, I think. Now there will be no more peeking, no more pretending that there's some kind of boundary to our daily lives. I put Lucy in the crib next to Sarah and cry miserably on the bed, just like I did that night when I was 15 and they wouldn't let me go out with George Guerrero. I marvel at the time tunnel I've created, the Charybdis that has swallowed me, the open maw of the NICU doors. You try to swim against the current, exhaust yourself, and die. Lucy's large enough to scramble out of the crib. I find her face and hands pressed against the door, my father on the other side, blowing kisses at each other while Lucy cries, pop, 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 pop. Okay, so now the last 2 poems in the book. The first one is version 1.60, which concludes the memoir part of the book. We do not visit Papi's grave for a long time. The electric shaver goes back to Amazon. The Christmas tree comes down. The COVID-19 pandemic locks us in for months. Sarah turns 2. And then it's June, and 2 years since Arturito number 3 died, and we decide to go. We have to wear masks and gloves because of the pandemic, but this time, when I place my gloved hand on his headstone, I feel something. I sob silently. We move on to Arturito number 2, and then we get lost trying to find Papi's grave. I try to orient myself by the mausoleum, and I finally find the right hill. Rafael has asked me quickly on the phone, "What do you want it to say on the headstone?" And there it is, the first thing that came to my mind. Beloved husband, father, friend. Here I feel nothing, but when my mother hugs me, we sob together. I think of how daunting it must be to know that the empty space on that plaque will one day have her name and some hasty words again. And then I remember, our plots, Raphael's and mine's, are right beside. I am also standing on my own grave. They've planted a red flowering tree nearby. It looks like it might grow to be quite big. Lucy and Sarah will have no trouble finding us. All right, the last poem I'm going to read you is also the last poem in the book, and it concludes the second version. This is version 2.90. It's been years now since my parents died, and now it's Raphael and I who are the grandparents. Lucy grows up to be a doctor, a cardiologist. She marries the son of an old friend, and they have twins, both boys. She names them after my father and her brother, Francisco and Arturo. Sarah grows up to be a commercial architect. She's known for buildings that appear to wobble but don't fall. She's a bohemian type, dresses in bandanas and goes barefoot. She has 2 little girls, Lucia and Sonia, for my mom. Somehow I have trouble imagining what Arturo will finally be. He drops out of college to paint, then meets a girl he follows to Morocco. When he comes back, he's unshaven and skinny as a string, heartbroken. He shuffles around in his sweatpants, watching tennis on TV. On Thanksgiving, we are a crowd, almost a full dozen. The kids stayed vegan. The tofurkey takes center stage, and then we all pass around the plates. Lucy's hair darkened to a soft brown, and Sarah and Arturo's more a dirty blonde. Their kids look nothing like me, but they call out, "Grandma, Grandma," always wanting something, another piece of pie, a glass of water. I can't but stand and watch them. Raphael's eyes catch mine. It is one of those moments that stretches time. Here we are, we say to each other without words. And then the moment's gone. Little Lucy going up to Raphael and hugging his knees. Pop, 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 carry me. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hello. Hi. Yeah, I can't. No, that was such a powerful reading, Celia. Thank you. So thank you for that. No, I cannot uh, top with or compete. Uh, but fortunately, I'll be doing something pretty different. Let's see. I'm just gonna set my stopwatch so I don't go over. I didn't bring any. I brought poems. I don't want to be that jerk who reads something off of their phone. Um, no, it's bad. uh, so this is kind of a nice vibe. The reading gets delayed, and everybody had an extra drink, and now kind of loosened up. Okay. Well, yeah, it's getting on toward. I mean, it's like the crack of 8. It's oh my God, bedtime, right? No, thanks so much for coming. Thank you, Celia, for that wonderful reading. That was terrific, and thank you, Jen and Catherine and Caridad and everyone at the Betsy who've located the podium at last. And thanks to those of you who came. I'm really pleased to be here and to not be cold in Western New York this week. And this reading was supposed to happen in April 2020. And then some other stuff went down. So here we are now in November of 2021. And just happy to be here. Celia read that wonderful, powerful sequence, and I'm gonna just mix it up and move around and do different stuff. So there really won't be things making a cohesive narrative, but I think you'll see some threads. One of the topics that I've been working on with some newer poems, I'm going to try to keep it lighter. But one of the topics I was working on recently is violence against women. So I should give you a content warning. There's going to be one poem that has describes some gun violence. Nothing too graphic, but it is in there, and I may or may not read one that references domestic violence. But there are also some jokes, so I hope that helps. Okay, I'm going to start with the title poem from my most recent book, Honeymoon Palsy, which has these wonderful skeletons on it that I just like to show people. Honeymoon palsy is a medical condition that I learned about from an episode of the scientific program Sex Sent Me to the ER. I highly recommend. So honeymoon palsy is a condition where if lovers are in bed together and one's head is resting on the other's arm and it cuts off the circulation and that arm goes numb, that's honeymoon palsy. And I saw this on an episode of Sex Sent Me to the ER. You can see what happened to this dude. And then I looked it up, and sure enough, that's a real medical thing. And there are other palsies. There's like Friday night palsy, if you get so wasted that you pass out in an armchair like this so that your arms are over the armrest and it cuts off the circulation. That's Friday night palsy. There's a whole bunch of these. That could be a series. But this is honeymoon palsy, and this is a sonnet. After fumblings they call making love, the newlywed couple spoons, a pose they've seen in movies. Hand on breast, his nose buried in her hair, his arm shoved beneath her head. The tender weight above his arm seems nothing, so he sleeps, enclosed in bliss, the afterglow's sweet repose. He wakes to a hand dead as a pitcher's glove. Usually, the damaged nerve recovers. Throughout the long, oblivious nights, they lie, seemingly aligned, heart to heart. Already they've learned so much, these new lovers, touching without meeting the other's eye, going numb to each other, part by part. Okay. And I will flip back to the first poem in this book. I like to do persona poems in the voices of a character because my life is boring. And I was thinking about the biblical story of Cain and Abel, and how if Abel is the first death, human death in the Bible, he's also the first murder victim, which made me think that he might be the first ghost. So this is first ghost, and Abel's the speaker. Heaven hadn't been invented yet. I stood, or thought I stood, beside my brother, who still clenched the bloody stone as if he full expected the pile of meat and rags to give him further argument. Then I recognized a broken sandal strap and knew myself the corpse. I'd never seen my own face. Now it burbled up a pulp like rancid pomegranate seeds. My brother prayed, for himself as ever, and bent together fallen branches and stones to conceal the animal thing. I struck at him, spat, kicked, and howled, all passed over, insubstantial as a dream of rain. The carcass only half buried, blood seeping through the guilty sand, my brother ran away, sobbing. I remained. For a time, the wind amused itself, first covering and then revealing a hand, a bit of hair, a bone. The beetles came, and flies, later jackals. An acacia sprouted through my ribs, nourished by my ruined heart. I laughed, or thought I laughed. My brother was a gardener, after all. In this way passed the first few lonesome years. My brothers spread their seed, and the innocent earth grew thick with people, some of them murderers. Since then, I have not lacked for company. There's a Twitter account called Forgotten Good Poems, which makes you a little sad when they reprint something of yours. But they tweeted that poem. I was like, oh, wah wah. But they tweeted that poem a few weeks ago, and I retweeted it, and I tagged Neil Gaiman because I'm shameless, and I said something about how his comic book The Sandman, which I love very much, had made me think about Cain and Abel in this way, and he retweeted it. So my heart grew 10 times that day because Neil Gaiman is the best. Okay, I'm gonna move to some newer poems. Okay. Yeah, this is the one that has some gun violence. Yeah, who is it? It's Neil Gaiman. Come to marry me. Right. All right. This is a partial catalog of things I used to be able to do. Touch my toes, of course. Hold my breath in the deep end for almost 2 minutes. Then burst the blue surface and earn my mother's worried smile. I could draw, freehand, a map of Western Europe. I don't want to brag, but I once hula hooped for a solid hour, mosquitoes sipping from my ankles as dusk shouldered in. I used to be able to teach an entire poetry class without imagining a heralding crack of gunfire advancing up the stairs, telling my students to hide under their plastic desks, locking the door if, in this imagining, I've remembered my keys. If not, trying to hold it closed, no doubt failing. A bone crash as my students, those breakable children, scream. I could recite the names of each of Zeus's sons, each daughter. I used to whistle like the airiest bird. My mother has recently gone into a nursing home with dementia, and mostly she has she hasn't been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. She has an aphasia, they say, that affects her language centers. So she's losing language. It's hard for her to read or to speak, and especially nouns and names. She doesn't know my name, but I've got a few poems about that. I think I'm not going to read many of them because they are bummers. But I'll read this one. This is about a little childhood incident. How it is between us. Buttons, coins, paper clips I slipped into my mouth. Although my parents warned of choking and germs, I couldn't stop tasting the world. I must have been 3 or 4 when I sucked a butterfly ring, bright plastic, from a Winn-Dixie quarter machine into my throat. It lodged firm like a bad idea. Mom was resting in her room, recovering from surgery to remove her gallbladder, the scar a red gash across her belly. Heaving, trying to cough, I tried her locked knob, pounded the door until she opened it and found me clawing at my neck. I wonder what color I'd turned by then. Scarlet? Purple? How quickly she rejected the Heimlich, which would tear her open. Instead, she jabbed a long finger down my throat. I gagged, pulled away, but she seized my arm, stabbing with her long nail, hooking and skewering until she poked the ring further down, and I was able to swallow it. We stood, or maybe fell, panting in that hallway, angry and grateful, both of us too hurt to speak. All right. I'll read another persona poem. I had a chance to go to Rome a few years ago, which was that was just the best. I love everything about it. I loved the way you're going to a restaurant and you turn a corner and there's the Temple of Apollo. You sort of fall over this wonderful history everywhere, and the art was just astonishing. And I got to see some of the sculptures by Bernini, which are so breathtakingly realistic, especially the way that he does the body and facial expressions and all that in stone. It was just astonishing to me. So this is another persona poem that's spoken by the statue, his Medusa statue, which is really just the head. And you've probably seen it. Her mouth is parted a little bit. She looks like she's just realizing what's happening to her. She looks utterly horrified, and it's just a wonderful wonderful sculpture. So this is spoken by her, Bernini's Medusa. The sculptor never gave me arms, yet arms are the first things one imagines, lifting slowly, hands floating like pale birds, fingers winging space that suddenly hisses with life. A mercy, perhaps. To touch is to be bitten. A finely chiseled head like a smiling spear tip drops between my eyes and tells me yes, he'd like nothing more than to plunge his fangs into my wrist, the fat pad of my palm that once rubbed olive oil into my skin. Imagine, in some studio cloaked in alabaster dust, my naked body, headless instrument of sin, severed already from its punishment. My thighs pressed together, still throbbing with God, even as my shoulders heave. Hands flutter toward the empty source of pain, the weapon, the goddess's battle bauble. My mouth opens. The sculptor never gave me words. Hands of marble batter the innocent air. Okay. What have I got? All right. I was chatting with Caridad earlier, and you were saying that everything is fodder when you're a poet, right? And anything can turn into subject matter. Um, and I definitely believe that, and try to tell my students that. They think that unless they've suffered, a personal trauma or something devastating, that they don't have anything to write about. And I'm like, just pay attention, just notice the world around you, and it'll give you material. It doesn't have to be something really intimate. It can be from nature. It can be from TV, sex ed of the ER, or just whatever happens to catch your attention and get your mind working. So I'll read a couple of poems that come from that sort of thing. And this one, I don't know what we were seeing, some terrible Marvel movie. And coming back from the movies, and I was with a friend, and his teenage son and his friend were in the back seat, and I think they were talking about like Legend of Zelda or something. And one of those boys said, "Why is the moon so evil?" And I was like, "Great question." So, why is the moon so evil? Because crater is another word for scar. Because the sea keeps surging close, then pulling back, and it's getting hard not to take that personally. Because men impaled it with a flag, walked across its face, pounded boot prints into its powdery cheeks. Because it's been 40 years since they left in their awkward ship of golden foil. Because they promised, one day, to return. Okay. All right. So I can either do two poems, or I could do one poem in a McSweeney's piece. Oh, Jen has a preference. Okay. All right. Well, you have to tell me which one, if you know of one. I have to think of it real quick and then find it on my phone. Oh. Okay. Okay. In that case, this will. Right. No, I agreed. Agreed. Nope. Yep. Yeah. Well, I can do that. Okay. I got more than one about teaching though. We can pivot. Here I am pivoting with my phone. It's called working through trouble. Uh-huh. So let's just end on a laugh. Sure. I love that experience piece. It's great. We never get to choose. I'm up here taking requests. Okay. So you're thinking of the message from your universities? Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah. So this is the I've done several short humor pieces for McSweeney's Internet Tendency, which is a lot of fun. And I had been reading that website for years. These short, a lot of them are monologues, very similar to doing a dramatic monologue in a poem. And one day it sort of occurred to me, oh, I can do that. I can write one of those. So I did, and it got rejected. And I wrote another one, and it got rejected. And it's just like poetry. But I've had a few pieces in McSweeney's, and they're fun to write, and it's fun to know that people read them, which is not always the case with not always the case with poetry. Yeah, and this one I published in June 2020. It says, and it was when my university, and I think a lot of other schools, were getting ready to go back to opening classrooms in fall 2020, and some schools had what seemed to be a blithely optimistic idea about how that was going to work, and what safety precautions they could put in place and which ones they could ignore. So I wrote this piece that was unexpectedly popular. It wound up being the 10th most popular article that McSweeney's ran that year, and it was a big year for them. 2020, they had some subject matter to work with, and it's been shared on Facebook. I don't know how many people actually read it, but it's been shared on Facebook over 100,000 times. So yeah, more than a poem, at least any of mine. Okay. So yeah, okay, I'll finish with this, which means I got to be that jerk reading on their phone. Okay. So this is another one that's a monologue that's sort of like an imagined mass email. That's a message from your university's vice president for magical thinking. Okay. Dear university community, since we first announced our plans to reopen this fall, a far too early decision given the lack of reliable data about the likely prevalence of COVID-19 in the fall, but done out of necessity to beat the June 1st National College Decision Day deadline, many students, parents, faculty, and staff have asked us how we plan to ensure that we reopen safely. Our strategy is outlined below, but the short answer is this. Our university will proceed as if everything will be okay because we really, really want it to be. Classroom safety. After measuring classrooms and examining our antiquated ventilation systems, our staff, those who haven't been furloughed, reports that there's absolutely no way our already scheduled and enrolled classes can safely fit in those spaces. But our university has always valued creative problem solving, so we have posted no COVID-19 allowed past this point signs on the doors of every campus building. Plus, to show how seriously we take the situation, the signs have been laminated. Campus housing. All dormitories have been thoroughly cleaned and disinfected, and all residents will be given a single room. We ask that after students move in, they make frequent use of our hand sanitizer stations, get in and out of bed on the same time every day, the same side every day, and flick their light switches on and off exactly 7 times when they enter or exit a room. When they arrive on campus, students will receive a welcome package containing a face mask branded with our university logo, a rabbit's foot, a horseshoe, an evil eye charm, a maniki nico, a crucifix, and a bulb of garlic. We know that some of that stuff is for vampires, but you can never be too careful. Dining. We admit this one's a toughie. How can we feed thousands of students while limiting the number of surfaces they touch and maintaining social distancing, all while they remove their face masks in order to, eat? As our currently laid off professor of Italian might say, mangia al fresco, which is very bad Italian. We're thrilled to announce that all meals will be served outdoors as pre-packaged picnics. Yes, there's scientific disagreement on whether the virus is less likely to spread in warmer weather and whether the benefits of open air are canceled out by large crowds. But our university has boldly decided to believe only the theories that we like. That is, being outside is fine, warm weather kills the virus, and if before each meal we hum David Bowie's Heroes while hopping on our left feet, we can never get sick. Mental health. Many students suffer from anxiety and depression, and the numbers of students struggling with these and other issues are expected to increase dramatically in the wake of the pandemic. Before coronavirus, we primarily dealt with student mental health challenges by nodding sympathetically and directing students to our overbooked and understaffed wellness center, where they were unable to schedule an appointment with one of our few counselors. Starting next semester, we will enhance that policy with the addition of a magic wand made from the exhumed bones of our university's founder. A receptionist, currently furloughed, will wave the wand over the student's head while chanting, "The founder cures thee. Get over it. Get over it." Academic calendar. Just as we lovingly worship the virus-killing good fairy of summer, so too we fear the virus-nurturing bad fairy of winter. Accordingly, we will be ending our fall semester early just before Thanksgiving and beginning our spring semester in mid-March. Why these dates? Are they random? Are we trying to avoid holidays in which students might travel and possibly carry back contagion? or working to appease a variety of pagan gods? Probably yes to all of these. What are our administrators doing to help? Rest assured, they're determined to make any sacrifice short of salary reductions that would go to benefit faculty and staff whose positions have been cut until we make it through this crisis. Our provost shreds every new issue of the Chronicle of Higher Education and uses the scraps to construct remarkably accurate effigies of the SARS-CoV-2 virus, which she then smashes and burns while sobbing. Our Dean of Libraries has been using her formidable research skills to locate monkey's paws, magical fish, and other wish-granting entities. And our president has chained his firstborn child on the shores of our nearby lake as an offering to the great and terrible Kraken. We can't wait to welcome our new and returning students to campus this fall. In the meantime, please don't consider the reality that while we say our campus will be open and in person, it's likely that many classes will still be conducted partly or wholly online. And for the love of Ishtar, please don't consider that under these pedagogically questionable and potentially dangerous circumstances, your student might be better off taking a gap year. Don't let the bad thoughts in. The future of our university literally depends on thinking only good thoughts. And when you arrive on campus, be sure to visit our new 4-leaf clover garden located where the Performing Arts Center used to be. Sincerely, the Vice President for Magical Thinking. And thank you. Thanks. Ooh, yeah, I don't think my university president ever saw that, and I hope that he never does. Do you need this?
Thank you. That was good progress. Thank you very much. It's there in perpetuity. I think we need to add that editorial position to Swim. Magical thinking director. I think we have. Okay. We all occupy that position. I think anyone working in poetry occupies that position. So thank you to our poets.